And guess what? So here's my money. All I want you to do for me is give it to me when you get home. Yeah, baby, give it to me when you get home. Now, R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T, think of T-C-B. Oh, little respect. Whoa, hey, little respect. All the time, keep on trying. You're running out of food, and I ain't lying. Stop when you come home, or you might walk in all down alone. I got the high, little respect.
Might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. Out there in the room, never don't stay. But I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy all alone. I'm alone without you. Because I'm happy all alone. Like happiness is true. Because I'm happy all alone. Happiness is true. Because I'm happy all alone. Like that's what you want to do.
Boosters, if you have parents who are boosters, please go home and thank them for their support of Writers Week, as well as many other Fremd activities and athletic events. We truly could not do this week without their support, and we very much appreciate that. Please also thank your English teachers for bringing you to Writers Week. You know, we are so fortunate to have a group of professionals who value writing and value students having the opportunity to see authors in person, and we definitely don't take that for granted. So today I have the honor of introducing the writer who is sitting behind me, Sarah Thankum Matthews. Sarah is a 2009 Fremd grad. So yeah, exactly. Go Vikes. So once upon a time, she was sitting in the auditorium seats just like you, getting ready for a period of Writers Week. And I was so lucky to teach Sarah in AP Lit and also in Advanced Creative Comp, where our class put together this collection of all of our class writing. And we did this like during class as a project. I'm pretty sure it was Sarah's idea to do this because she loved stuff like this. And luckily we had an amazing group of kids that year. And we met in the writing lab after school and we put this together. And so then after we had the whole thing compiled, we had it in class and we were having a little celebration at the end of the year. And one of our students, Christine Chen, if you watch this on YouTube tomorrow, Christine, said, we need to pass this around and everyone needs to sign it. So that way when one of us becomes famous, we'll have each other's signatures. And we all knew she was talking about Sarah. We all passed it around and we all signed it. And of course, we are so happy to have this keepsake now. So in the years that Sarah has been away from Fremd High School, she has continued to write and to impress us all with her talent and her kindness and her generosity. Her work has been published in Best American Short Stories. She is a recipient of fellowships from the Asian American Writers Workshop and the Iowa Writers Workshop. And in 2020, she founded the mutual aid group Bed-Stuy Strong. And she wrote this novel, All This Could Be Different. It was her debut novel. There were pictures of it up in Times Square, which is pretty much unheard of for a debut novel. And it was named a New York Times Editor's Choice, and it was shortlisted for the National Book Award, which is a huge, huge deal. Yeah, let's give it up for that. So we do have copies behind me of All This Could Be Different for sale, $27 at the end of the period, cash or card, or you can just come up and say hi to Sarah, get your picture taken with her. She would love to meet you. So now I ask you to join me in welcoming Sarah Matthews to the Writers Week stage.
It's so wild to be back here. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's very, very special for me to be back here at Fremd. So my name is Sarah Thunga Matthews. I was part, as Mrs. Enk, Gina, said, the graduating class of 2009. If that seems like ancient history to you, that's okay, I understand. But yeah, I showed up in these gray carpeted hallways, first green carpeted when I was here 15 years ago, towards the tail end of junior year. I'd gone to school in two other countries before, 3 in total, counting the US. I had gone to school in Oman and in the Middle East, and very briefly Canada. I'd also homeschooled myself for a year, long story. No guidance counselor knew what to do with me at Fremd at first, and honestly, I'm sympathetic. Here's a tiny snippet I wrote years ago about my first few days at Fremd in an essay about my family's immigration story. So I wrote this in 2015. On my first day of high school in Palatine, Illinois, I can't figure out my locker. American teenagers filled me with fear. These creatures my own age, allegedly, but bleached and lip-glossed and wearing clothing that fits so differently from my own, occupy space with such force and ease. I am a little turtle with my brown face and overstuffed backpack, swerving to avoid my classmates in the hallway. I'm asked, do they have schools where you come from? Do they have malls? Is Oman like a village in India? I spend most of my lunch hour on that first day trying to explain to adults my visa status, my legitimacy in pursuing public education. I've rehearsed the speech with my parents ad nauseum, so I know the jumble of letters almost by heart. My family and I are here under H-4 visa status as dependents on my father's work visa. Yes, we applied for our green cards. Hopefully we'll get them soon. I try a thing called tater tots. I get a C- on my test in English, which is always my best subject before, and a hard lump begins to form in my throat. So, I wrote that as part of this larger story I was trying to tell about the journey that I and my family took coming to the US. I have more to say here about my time at Fremd, but, and I want to talk to you about things I wish I'd known when I was here. But in a moment of celebrating the wins from my past self, myself of 15 years ago, I'm going to read from my novel. It's called All This Could Be Different, and it is, regardless of any kind thing that Gina said, unimaginable to me. It would have been unimaginable to my young self that I had written a book, published a book, yet let alone for all the other wonderful things that had happened to it. I'm going to start from the first chapter and then jump a little forward. Before I do read, I want to say something about the contract between an audience and the person who makes a book. All of you, I believe, will at some moment in your life be on a stage or write something or make something that other people read. And what people don't talk enough about, what I certainly didn't know when I was in the back row of the Colsey Auditorium, checking my phone or doing my homework, was that it's a contract of vulnerability. I'm hoping And any writer who comes in here is hoping that you give them the gift of your attention. So, I remember what it was like in high school and all the different pressures that you're under, but I'm asking for the gift of your attention while I'm here doing a vulnerable thing, which is sharing my life and my work and my thought with you. So, with that being said, and it's really, I'm sharing this much less about me and more because it's something I wish somebody had said to me when I was, like a dumbass, like 16-year-old. Okay, A1. I would like to tell a story of different time. I was 22, a teak switch of a girl. I had finished college. There were not many jobs. The economy had punctured like a tire. Obama had won a second term. He said, jobs, healthcare, national healing. He said, Trayvon Martin could have been my son. I was moved by this, thought that sort of imaginative exercise, bravery. I would listen to his speeches on NPR as I dressed for work. I had found a job. This set me apart from my college friends. I was a consultant, or going to be. This, despite my RD degree, a consultant in training, 3 toddlers hiding in a suit. I did not consider myself a sellout. What I felt was that I had been saved from drowning. My classmates without jobs had moved in with their parents, were working unpaid internships at noble nonprofits. I wish them well. My parents were not with me, had left me to make my way in the new country. I was glad they did not, for now, need me to send them money they had before. My client was a baobab of a corporation, Fortune 500. They made car seats, heating units, pedometers, batteries. My boss demanded I wear pantyhose. You are a contractor, he told me, no benefits. Women who work for me wear makeup, that is how it is. My men wear suits. You must dress better than the clients, always. That is how they know we work for them. We get the client to their definition of success. People only want to hire a guy when they want to be him a little. Remember that. Try some makeup, just a little, nothing tardy. I listened dutifully. The pay was only okay. Billable contractors' wages, this despite the 50-hour weeks. I had to file self-employment taxes. But my boss liked me. Early on, he called me his rock star. This was funny to me, since in actuality, rock stars get on stage, perform, sleep with many girls, wreck the hotel room. I, meanwhile, sweated competence, a hungry efficiency. I waxed my arms, radiated deference, never met an Excel sheet I didn't like. He had first offered me $19 an hour. His firm was tiny, only 9 people. I said, thank you, I will think on it. I walked to a good restaurant in my college town and drank a full glass of white wine in the middle of the afternoon. I called him back. I said, hello, Peter. I have another offer, but I want to work with you. Would you consider 30? In the space between the gin bottles, the mirrored bar showed me a soft-featured girl, skin the color of Hennessy, eyes vacant with fear. My boss said, like a god granting a boon, 23 an hour. You'll relocate to Milwaukee, where your client is. I will pay for your apartment. That sounds great, I said, may have added, I'm honored I get to work for you. All nonsense. Once I hung up, I punched the air and yelled. I remember the restaurant as deserted, but it may not have been. This is not a story about work or precarity. I am trying late in the evening to say something about love, which for many of us is not separable from the other shit. As the summer began, I moved to Milwaukee, a rusted city where I had nobody, parents 2 oceans away. I lay on the sun-warmed wood floor of my paid-for apartment and decided I would be a slut. So that's the first chapter. All This Could Be Different, is the story of this young Indian woman named Sneha, who has just, as you heard, finished college, moves to a city where she does not know anybody, and proceeds to try to live a certain kind of conservative, careful, frightened dream for her life. What Sneha wants is to have a decent little apartment and make enough money, and because she's a queer woman with very conservative parents and comes from a very conservative culture, thinks of her time in Milwaukee as a sort of ticking clock where she can act on the truth of her desires for a set period of years. And so she goes on to date women. She downloads what in 2013 was the newfangled invention of dating apps, because I didn't mean to write a period piece, but ultimately I did. And I'm going to jump forward and read another 2 chapters. They're both short. When I read chapters, I snap my fingers at the end to show when we're moving to the next one. And the only characters you really need to know are Marina, who is someone she runs into early in her time in Milwaukee, this sort of magnetic, beguiling ballet dancer who she keeps falling into and eventually falling for, and messages on the dating app, and her friend and coworker, Tom, who she knows from college. F1. In summertime, Milwaukee is six-packs in parks, listening to free jazz, festival everything, gastropubs with the young and hip foaming out of them, home repairs, grilling out, all neighborliness, sweet like a laugh. The city is a clenched hand as it grows colder, its people chapped and flaking, hunkered down, shoulders stooped against the freeze rolling out from the north, barely tempered by Lake Michigan. It was fall when I first messaged Marina, those early days of cold, and she did not reply. My pride was burnt, and by this person I'd never met. No matter, I thought, and found other beds to lie in, took refuge in ordering furniture from the internet. I was tired of living merely with a bed, a table, and a couple of folding chairs, so I overcorrected. This is built into adulthood, like one of those wall-mounted ironing boards in old houses. Somewhere in their 20s, people like me become far too horny for interior design. My paid-for apartment was in Brewers Hill. Once this had been the American dream. Perched on bluffs overlooking the Milwaukee River's valley, the neighborhood housed hundreds drawn to the foundries, mills, and tanneries that lined their riverbank. Foremen and owners lived next door to immigrant laborers with calloused palms and tight crocheted workers' cottages hemmed like grand Italianate houses on large lots. Still, neighbors knew each other. Their children played free. Post-war decline gutted the neighborhood, smoked it, cased it, cured it for another day. Businesses left the valley. City officials demolished vacant dwellings in resignation, one by one. In the 70s and 80s, spared the red line segregation of neighborhoods directly to its north. Brewers Hill began to see people trickle in, steady, slow. Condos popped up on demolished lots. Factories converted into coteries of apartment lofts. The pretty rows of colonials housed neighborhood-watching mothers and fiancés who peer through blind slats and email the Hill listserv when they see young black men from 5 blocks north cross the sightlines of their porches. Suspicious character, they type, pulses pleasurably heightened, their eyes darting window to screen. Older people in the front yard still nod at you, offer flower cuttings, suggest you shrink wrap the windows when winter sets in. I use the present tense, but I mean, that's the way I remember it. And these are the things I learned about it later, and the two combined have formed my truth of a place. We all have our truth of a place. There is no universal narrative of any city that is also real, only marketing. A late October storm blew through the city, pelting it with freezing rain. It caught me outside in a gray woolen dress. I let it soak me to indecency. Inside again, I toweled off, stripped to nakedness. I went on the dating website and shot off messages to the women whose pictures inspired gritted tooth lust in me. Now there's a table, so there's a woman, there's a person's name and the main character's opening message to them. 1, Brienne, hey. 2, Emily, hey gorgeous. 3, Wanda, hey smiley face. 4, Ashley, my doctor told me I need some vitamin U. 5, Kaylee, sup. 6, Carlene, OMG Frank Ocean, got me through college. 7, Tanvi, hey, always great to see another queer brown lady here, how are you? My attempts ranged from awful to lazy. Some of the women replied, but the ones who did seemed unable to sustain a conversation, seemed too dull to live. My lack of high-performance results left me self-conscious. I thought of jokes people had made in college about men who came from where I did, men who would message girls and ask to be shown boobs and vagina, spelt bobs and vagine. I checked the tracking numbers of the furniture items I'd bought. The pieces, dressers, and tufted sleeper sofas and leaner mirrors were lodged in the belly of the country, moving slowly, implacably towards me. You've totally lost your old accent, Tom told me, somewhat accusingly. Worry about yourself, I replied, my throat constricting for reasons I did not quite have a handle on. We had gone out for a martini lunch. 6 toddlers hiding in 2 suits. This was at a bar Louis near the client. There were decorative gourds on our table, a quarter sheet announcing fall specials, a pumpkin spice tiramisu, apple cider hot toddies. My martini was pineapple elderflower. Tom's was clear and burny, only a red stuffed olive anchoring it. He told me I should never order a girly drink like that again, unless I was alone. Dudes like women who drink like men, he said. What makes you think I care what dudes like? I said. My homie, it's so clear. So clear you want men to admire you, or fear you, one of the two. So clear, I said. Right, got it. Stay away from the froofy booze, or don't. It don't matter to me. It doesn't, right, I said. We're in competition, really, Tom said. Too bad I like you. Will our loyalty survive capitalism? Da-da-dum. Don't assume anything about my loyalty, I said. Less because I meant it, more to sink nails into the power of being cold. When our waitress brought us our checks, mine was missing a $10.99 pineapple martini. I noted this aloud. Brilliant, Tom said. You've scored 1 puny shot against the man. Let's roll, Broseph. I shook my head. I liked feeling holier than someone. It happened so rarely. I waved over the waitress, who had some kind of uncomfortable-looking growth on the left side of her nose. It's been taken care of, she said. Pardon? She got it. What? I asked. The waitress gestured over to the back of Bar Louis. A swishy-haired blonde woman with no breasts was playing pool. It was the dancer. Surrounding her tiny form was this cluster of laughing androgynes. Cropped of hair, suspended. Some of them wore T-shirts that said, Strive Dance. The woman's face was heart-shaped, a bow tie nestled at its point. She leaned over the red felt table and took her shot, then looked up straight at me. I thrust my eyeballs down, fumbled at my wallet, face flaming. Hey, you have a fan, Tom said, licking his lip in a parody of male grossness. She ghosted me on a dating app. It's not a come on, it's an apology, like politeness. Come, we're gonna be late for our check-in at work. Wait, he said. Are you dating? Are you dating girls? Let's go, Thomas. How many years have we been friends, bruh? Like, not that many, actually. I tell you about my sexploits down to the queef. I told you about the time Isabel threw up on my dick and she literally swore me to secrecy. Here I was thinking you were some Indian chick zealously guarding her virginity. Meanwhile, you're Gertrude Steining all over the ill mill, apparently. I'm hurt, my dude. Like, sawed off, I said. Here's cash. You can pay me back. Let's go. Do you not want to thank your polite friend? I am not going to show up late and stinking of gin, I said, to be chewed up by Peter and Susan and all our other bosses. Okay, agenda item tabled, Tom said, smiling ominously. For now. We walked out of Bar Louis, buttoning our coats against the chill, and I did not glance back. It's truthful, this cliche. My heart was pounding. Thank you all. I want to say a little bit about how I ended up in front of you. And I'll try to keep it short, because a life or even 15 years of one is a long thing. But when I was sitting in the green seats that you're sitting in, it was really incredibly opaque to me how anyone who wanted to be a writer, which I did, ever ended up with an actual book, actually getting called up to speak and read to other people. And so much of what this novel is about is the mystery and wonder and unknowingness of being young. It's in some ways in conversation with the fact that the seed or the bud of any plant has no idea what it will grow into, no idea of the blossom, the larger tree it holds within it. And I've thought about this often, what it means to not know and what we can do with the fact that none of us can know our futures, none of us can know what life has in store for us. I think one part of dealing with this is people sharing with each other, sharing their stories, sharing the actualities and factualities of their lives. And so, in short, and I'm happy to talk to any of you who want to know more, about writing, how to get it all done, to the best of my ability. If you want to find me after the talk, I feel very down to share anything I can. But the short version was, I came to the US and I came to the school as the immigrant child of immigrants. There were all these ways in which I had longed to be a writer, whether that was a novelist or a journalist or someone who worked in films. Like, as long as I worked with stories in some way, I wanted to be someone who could do what had been done for me time and time again, which was share stories that other people could live inside, could learn from, could be comforted by. And when I was at Fremd, actually, it was in so many ways the true start of my journey as a writer, because Writers' Week was still happening then. And I submitted my writing and got chosen as a student writer. And it's very funny and embarrassing for me now, but I submitted a poem called Homophobia is So Gay, and gave this spoken word poem during Writers' Week. And when I submitted a draft of that poem to, I think it was, Gina Enck, she called me into her office and was like, well, there's a lot that's well written here, and there's a lot that's angry and political, and you clearly feel very strongly about the matter of both structural and relational homophobia, which, the times have changed a lot, but at the time I was in high school, it was very much a thing. And then she said, why do you care about it? And I was like, well, I just think it's important and the people treat each other well. And she was like, no, why do you care about it? Put it in the poem. And so during my senior year, I came up and delivered this impassioned spoken word poem that confessed to people something I didn't share very much, which was that my first love was a girl, and this was true even though that I'd grown up in this extremely conservative country, where homosexuality is punishable and criminalized. You can go to jail. And so I will never forget the feeling I had after sharing that poem, which was I felt naked and terrified and like I wanted to run away. And the lights are very bright when you stand up here, as many of y'all know, because many of you have or will share your writing here. And so I just remember blinking and then people coming up to me and crying and saying, "Me too," or, you know, "I have two moms, I don't think you knew that about me." And so I think there's something about what writing can do to help us connect with each other, and that has always stayed with me. I went to college. I went to the University of Wisconsin at Madison. I'm really glad that I was able to go to undergrad without like a ton of debt. It was a big reason why I wanted to go to a public school. I did not make choices assuming that I would have a career in writing. I thought I would be a psychologist for a while, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to work in business. And one of my two majors was education policy, and one thinking that I might try to work in education down the line, and one of my majors was creative writing. And then a lot of stuff happened, some of which I write in fiction here. I was a consultant for a period of time in the Midwest, and then I moved to Washington, D.C. and worked in politics, which was the best gift I could have given myself, actually, to have not tried to be a professional writer right away when I was so young I didn't know my ass from my elbow, you know? I just think that there's something that is really underrated when a lot of people give advice to young aspiring writers, which is, please live some life. Figure out who you are. Figure out why it matters to you to tell any kind of story. I think the project of art making is, in the age we're in, can be so cheapened and commodified by the fact that we're living in the attention economy. All of us are having, you know, other people's content, other people's stories in various ways, like pumped towards us, most often by our phones, but also by media all around. And I think that if you want to be an artist, you have to ask yourself, who am I? What is my world? And what is the emotional need that underlies me becoming an artist at all? I worked in DC for about 4 years, and then I sort of saw a certain kind of writing on the wall. I was in my late 20s, and I thought, well, I can try to climb up a certain kind of like career ladder in politics, or I can pay attention to the fact that for years, like for all my 20s, I wrote at night, almost every night, you know, it's like certainly multiple times a week, from 11 p.m. to like 1 a.m., because that's what I wanted. I felt a compulsion towards it. And I thought, well, I can either have writing be a hobby, which is great, and what, you know, many people end up doing, and I think that's a very special thing. And I was like, but I think I want something more. And so what I would say is pay attention to your desire around this stuff. My realization pointed me towards wanting to have some time and space to finish a book. And so I applied to something called MFA programs, which are Master of Fine Arts programs. Like many of them, not all of them, but some of the good ones in this country are fully funded, which means you can get a master's degree in creative writing and have it be paid for, and in fact get a small stipend. You know, if you're lucky enough to be accepted into a program that allows for this. So it was just very important for me to not take on debt, to, you know, pursue the lucrative path of creative writing. It's not lucrative, just letting you know. And so, yeah, I went to this MFA program called the Iowa Writers Workshop, and I continued work on a book that took me, by the time I abandoned it, 7 years. So I worked on this book for 7 years. It carried a fictionalization of my immigration story. It carried so much of myself within me that I think it started to buckle under the pressure of it. And I was reading this manuscript that I wrote, thinking, well, if this can't hold my attention, it's not going to hold the attention of people out in the world. And so I put it aside, gave myself some time to be very, very, very sad. Decided this was in 2020, decided to focus on something that was not myself and my own mind, and became really preoccupied with food security organizing in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York. The neighborhood I live in is called Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. It's home to about 165,000 people. It's a historically black neighborhood, and COVID hit it very hard. A lot of people lost their jobs. There are all these ways in which COVID as a phenomenon just exacerbated existing crises in our communities, whether it was racism or poverty or what have you. And so I and a whole bunch of strangers who became some of my closest friends worked together around the clock as like unpaid organizers to try to get folks food, and ended up working to, like creating a system that sort of anybody could walk into and participate. Mutual aid is really based on this. It's a political practice that's really based on this idea that our communities' help can meet our own community's need. And all of us have needs, and all of us can help. And so Bed-Stuy Strong, the mutual aid group that I founded and helped to run with a lot of other people, became this sort of like wild, robust organization that had 4,000 members and supported 28,000 people during the height of the pandemic. And it was apparent to me that something had to give because I had a full-time unpaid job, I was on unemployment, and I still wanted more than anything else to write, even if I felt like my first book, the book that had spent 7 years on, was not going to be it. And so I wrote a new book. I wrote a book governed more than anything by what I needed to read then. And I wrote a book where you start with an individual, frightened and atomized I, and end up, over the course of the novel, with a we. You end up with a group portrait of these young people in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, forging community and a new way of living out of love and struggle and the raw material of their lives. So I wrote the book. I got an agent by showing the book to 8 literary agents, and then the agent sold my book, and a publishing house bought it and printed it and slapped a very beautiful cover on it, and here I am. I think I have a few minutes left, so I'm going to share at the close of things some of what I wish I'd known outside of how the hell do you become a writer when I was where you are. I want all of you to stand up right now and stretch up to the ceiling. Move your body around, take a deep breath, sit back down. So here's a numbered list of some things that I wish I'd known when I was your age. I'll try to say it fast because we're low on time. 1, your body, your one precious body, has to carry you through life, and it keeps the score. When you're a high schooler, you're told that exercise, that taking care of your body, paying attention to your body and the emotions it carries within it are really only about health or virtue or your weight or something to do with how you look, or maybe if you're good at sports, the community that comes with that. But your body is your container for all your life. And it's a source of pleasure, exercise. I wish someone had told me that exercise would make me feel good when I was a student at Fremd. But, I'm sharing that now because I am dealing with some of the problems that come with ignoring your body for 15 years. 2, try to think in long time. The younger you are, the harder this is. Remember yourself as a child, how exhilarating and devastating a single hour could be. The things that matter to you so much now, some of it, a lot of it, will shock you 5 years from now, how little it mattered. It will shock you how much you never think about something that consumes you right now. 3, understand that many things that you might feel shame and embarrassment for as a young person are actually worth cherishing. My queerness, the fact of being an immigrant, my skin color, the accent I came into Fremd with, these were things to celebrate, not hide away. Number 4, nothing of worth is ever done alone. What is far more interesting than individual ambition is collective ambition. This includes writing. If you write with a community. If you want to do things, do them with other people. Share your dreams for yourself, and think less about yourself as someone who is moving through the world trying to gather up gems in a little basket that you carry, and more as someone who's part of something larger, and that something larger is other people. Number 5, David Foster Wallace said, "You get to decide what to worship." And Zadie Smith said, "Time is how you spend your love." There's no way, even in the secularization of American life, that you go through the world without worshiping something. Some of us worship money, some of us worship beauty, some of us worship social or other success. And what David Foster Wallace said, and was completely right about, is whatever you worship will eat you alive. So choose well. I really mean that. Choose well. Think about what you spend your time with. Is it your phone? Is it your relationships? Is it school? Is it something else? That's what you worship, and it's worth paying attention to. Finally, I want to say that I hope you take your education seriously. Your real education, which overlaps, but is not the same as your credentialed education. Your credentialed education is important, don't get me wrong. It's the driver's license and the hall pass of your life. But your real education is what you invite to be a part of